Hi all and welcome to Promethean Bryce. This is another one in the series of modeling and sculpting characters, and today we're going to be doing Rambo from the first Rambo film. But really and truthfully, because it's Rambo, it'll be you can do it from any. So on this particular one, I couldn't find a reference image for the back. So what I've done is I've actually put a image that I found on the internet of a 3D character that's already done that is in a similar sort of body shape and size to what Rambo actually is, or what I believe it to have been, and to get that sort of base shape. Because you always, like I said, you're always going to need a reference image that you put in for your front and side reference. But it's just there so I can so I actually have something to go off rather than that. But later on, I'll be changing a few sizes to get that particular look that I'll be getting. But like I said, if you can't find an exact reference, you've got to improvise, and this is the case where I've improvised by just getting that base. We'll not be using the head on this, for example, but we're using the overall base of his whole body, hands, and feet. But yeah, just like always, we start with making the sphere into a remeshed sphere just to be able to actually start moving it around with the deform tool like I am here, getting that basic shape. Like I said, not getting too much detail into it because we're going to do it in parts as always. Uh, Base shape, minor details, major details, except for the hands where you're essentially when you get your base layer on that, they're always, or and your feet if you're doing toes, they'll always be quite detailed in general because that's how you split them up. So just keep that in mind, like we're doing here. So we're getting a little bit more extra detail then because that's just how they are at the base. And then you're duplicating it over to the other side rather than redoing it, obviously. So and you're mirroring with the tools. So once you've got that base shape, you're just getting that next level of detail in. So here we're doing like sort of the pec muscles, sort of using the two top tools there to like I said, to add to cut, and then also the crease tool, and continuously using what is essentially the tool you'll use the most. If you use my method, which is the elastic deform moves, the crease tool obviously gets those details in nicely. And if you need to increase the size of, say, like a certain muscle group, like like these abs in a minute, for example, and you add that in with the top tool, and the one underneath that, if you need to cut some away, it's more if you want to add extra layer or decrease an extra layer, whereas the crease is the main tool to add that sort of curve or the detailing in itself. And then, like I said, as usual, you're going along with each one. So you might start with the chest, then I've done here where I've done the abs, but because they merge into each other, you're just going to constantly go back and forth. So they join at a quite neat pace. And then with this one, I've done it the better way around, where if you'd watched the last video on Wonder Woman, you're going to see that I forgot to sort of paint it early on. But if you paint it as you go along, it saves you a lot of time, and it helps you get a general overlook. Because if you look there, you would have noticed that you couldn't really tell that muscle depth, but as soon as you put that color in, I could see that sort of leg wasn't correct. Just as simple as that. Just add it in, change the color with the paint tool at the bottom, and then see if you're correct. Make any changes as necessary, and then delete the one, and then move it across. I haven't done the feet there because he's going to have shoes on, and I didn't really need to bother with doing detailed feet. It would just created more mess, more polygons, and more time, so I didn't really need to do it. So then we go straight to the arms, and as you can see, I've got quite a lot of muscle detail. Like I say in every video, if you're doing muscle detail, get a picture from the internet, type in male anatomy, and you can get a good sort of off-screen reference of what you're looking for if you don't really know muscle groups. And then, like I said, just add in the whole thing. You go all the way up to the neck. I tend to do the hands last just because they're a bit harder to do. Um, but it's really up to you where you want to go and start. So once I've got that base mesh in there, I noticed I can't do the face, obviously, because it's not the correct one. So we've got Stallone's face. Again, I couldn't find an exact reference of it, so I've used two very similar sort of time frame pictures and obviously he's got the cigarette in one and he's got a little bit lean to the other. So you've got to do your best you can. So again, it's a case of, you know, using your initiative, having a look at, say, external reference of Stallone's face, and trying your best to do it. I believe I got a pretty good outcome out of this, but again, comment in the sections if you think I got it not good enough or spot on. But yeah, it's always quite. I always find it hard to do celebrities' faces just because you try that little bit extra because you want to get the most accurate look you can, and it kind of puts you off a little bit. Just sort of relax about it and try and treat it like just any other reference. So I'm just like adding the nose in there, extruding it, remeshing all the time just to make sure the mesh is correct and it has that potential to be extruded or creased in. Constantly looking at the reference, moving it around, getting it correct. Like I said, you may notice that I'm not exactly going to those references just because that's profile image isn't exactly to the side, so I've had to improvise a little bit. And I've done that by, like I said, looking at external pictures and then um, using that the front picture as my main reference. Like I'll say, always pick one, either the front or the side, and it just helps you out a lot. And then just increasing sort of the chin here around, increase there, sort of muscle in the to the cheekbones and the face muscles, and then trying to get that bridge correct to the nose. I'd say the hardest thing to do is probably the nose, and then trying to get that shaped correctly and in. And then, like I said, using the mask method where you'll use the mask tool to do the shape of the eyes, invert the mask, decrease the polygons in that particular area, then remesh it just so you can put the spheres in for the eyeballs, and then either increase or move the sort of eyelids around that eye so they have that natural curve. That's why I would suggest putting the eyeballs in so you get the exact sort of the exact shape. Because if you do that after, it will take you a lot longer time and it won't be correct. Then, like I said, I feel like I've got a general sort of look on it, so I've added some color here just to see if it's correct. And then I've added some shadows as well to get, because his face has got quite a, Stallone's got quite a defined face, so you're gonna have to use a lot of sort of lines, but they've got to look correct. Because if you overuse lines, you can also make someone look older, and that goes the same within drawing as well. But yeah, I feel like I've got a good outcome there. And then I've just doing the ears and that as well, just because they're another one. I had to really improvise with these because you can't see the top end of his ear, so I'm just trying to use a generic ear and try to keep it the same size as what I could see on the reference. And then we're just adding in little bits here and there, making it a little bit more detailed. And then adding in those colors. And then I'll do a base layer here in a minute as well, and the eyebrows, just because I need to know the shape for when I do it later. I often do the faces quite sort of plain neutral look for the animation version. Like I said, I do two versions: the animation version ready to go for animation, and then the pose version, which is more for the 3D prints. And then what I've done is I've put the head on there just to see if it works. And then, like I said, I've had to do resizing with the neck, resizing with sort of small bits on the chest and that, just to get that correct look. So again, I've had to go on an external image of what Rambo is and sort him out there. And then we'll just make small tweaks along the way. So once I've done that face enough, before I do the hair, I'm just going to do the fingers just to make sure they're correct. Just add in sort of nails, or like I've done here. This one I was doing sort of cutting at first, but then again I realized it's probably better if I do it separate and then add them in. So I've just added one in, shaped it correctly, then I'll duplicate that over onto the other ones and shape them correctly as well. Just add a little bit extra to the knuckle and sort of joints there. Because once you've got the sort of knuckle details and the joint details, your hands are basically done. Just a case of copying them over and resizing them. And then, as always, add in that skin color on top. and then duplicating it over. And like I said, because I didn't really need to do the feet on this one, I thought I'd leave them to just do straight off boots. And I noticed that if you saw me move the abs there, if you look at a picture of Stallone, his abs aren't, they're kind of like that type that sort of go a bit more down because they're a bit more sculpted in. So I've had to do that because on the original reference, they were quite, you know, symmetrical. So I've had to change that. Again, it's like I said, it's looking at the external reference and seeing if it's correct and then making adjustments. And then with the trousers, if it's clothes that are quite loose, this is where I'll add the base mesh layer technique, and then I do it in parts just like I would with anything else instead of extruding it, because you can, the more you, if you do this, you can join it later like I do with the body, and it makes it easier to do and get that shape. If you drag it down with the mesh move tool, it's sort of going to be everywhere. And if you want it to be neat, you've just got to do it the same way you would do the other stuff. But yeah, so like I said, if you look at this first, it's going to look a little bit messy just because you're getting that, again, just like the body with clothes, you've got to get that base shape. So at this point, I've decided that I can't really do the look without the hair. Took me a bit of a while to get this hair done correctly because I'm not sure why, but it was actually really difficult to do. So I've tried to get that general first shape, and then I've added different um, different spheres just to add sort of the sort of fringe in the back, sort of back layer of it, because he's got longer hair, obviously, as Rambo. And you don't want it to look too feminine, so you're trying to add it and curve it round as best as possible. I did a few versions of this, and I've constantly tweaked it as I've gone along. And then eventually, when you get his sort of headband in, it looks a lot cooler. But it's just keep going over, adding details. You can do this in many ways. You can actually add realistic hair if you wanted. But I'm trying to keep everything quite consistent, in a particular style. And because I'm also thinking about at the end of the day, the main outcome of these sculpts isn't the animation version. It's more the to go onto the Promethean Bryce store where you can print them off because I want them as like physical models. So that's why I keep it quite chunky when it comes to sort of hair and stuff. So yeah, like I said, you got to keep going over and over, and then eventually, I've done the method where you add a curve, and then extruded that curve in the settings down the side. You'll see it there. There's a little green one that's highlighted at the moment. It's gone now, but when you get the green one highlighted, you can extrude the value of the curve, and it just, again, it's another thing that keeps it with that flat look, rather than if I did it with the sphere, I'd have to boolean it out to get it. Again, it's extra work and it's unnecessary. So I've done this a little bit weird. I kept going back and forth in parts, not as consistent as my usual ones. But what I've done is I've then got that base mesh. So now I want to add details. So I've joined them all together, remeshed it, and now this is where I can start adding sort of creases, which at first I added too many, so I did it again. Adding sort of your creases, your sort of sections where all your stitches go. Your just everything that goes inside your trousers, as you can see now, and then adding the line in for the belt later. So at first I was doing this wrong because I put it inwards, but if you actually extrude that outwards, you can get the better shape. Then, with the belt, you're doing the same method as you did with the headband, using the curve method, making it fit around that trouser base. And then usually with these sections, again, you Boolean cut in the cube there for the belt. And then you do the same method to get the belt holders. I'm not sure what you would actually call them. But and then you will attach them later. You don't need to actually join them. You can just add them on top because it's not going to make a difference if you join them or not. And then I'm just using the flatten tool to get a bit more of a harsher edge add in those bits. Again, I've used if you see in the background, you can see the toy reference, but it's the best reference I could find to get that outfit. And then we've gone down to the shoe, and we started with the foot on this one. We get that general shape. Because it's a big boot, you've got quite a big lump around it, and then you add in this second section into it. Then you're joining them together as usual and getting a bit of a better shape. Then I'm using the mask tool to add in, say, extrude and take away sort of the parts where the shoe comes in. You can actually do those separately if you wanted to get a little bit better. Personally, I should have done that, but like I said, it's still a learning process for myself as well, and that's something I'd have done differently. But if you do it separately, you can make it look a lot neater, and it wouldn't take much time because the only thing you're changing is instead of pushing the mesh back, I'd have just extruded it. And then with every boot, I mentioned in every video, because it's quite a hard surface, your sole of your shoe is always going to be hard surface mesh. So always do it as a cube, get the correct pieces together, and then what you can do is you can smooth it. If you go into edit mode, subdivide it a couple of times, then you can smooth it out, and then you go back to that top section and you make sure that boot folds in where it would into the sole. And then with these boots, he's got sort of like overlays which ties it in together. He does also have laces, which we'll add in a minute. But you've got those two bits over. Simple as it's just quite simple. You just get the curve tool again, and then you put it around the shoe, and then you get another curve. Extrude the mask it and extrude it for the extra bit, so it has a little bit of a lump where it would the sort of section would go in between. And then I've just added those back together and added some colors onto the belt just because I felt like it was. You can't really get a. I say this in all my videos. You can't really get a general overview of what you're looking at without having sort of color, or at least if you go into the attributes and have it as a different color altogether, it just helps you see it better. And then I've just used the curve tool again. Except this time I've drawn the shape in for the lace, and then I've extruded it like always, and then I've just made small tweaks, put it inside the shoe, and then afterwards just duplicated that over to put onto the bottom section, and then I'll have joined it all together, made it, converted it to a mesh, and then colored it, and then duplicated the one over that. So you've got two boots there, plus your section there. And this is what I was saying where I extruded it outwards and it made it look better. Then we're just changing a few colors for the final piece of the trousers. And then again, we're using it again. We used the curved method a lot on this particular one to get the fold downs for his headband, and then just sort of giving them turning them into a mesh, and then using the deform tool just to make them look a bit more unique, and then adding small details into the trousers, making sure they fit around the leg. And then with this, he's got the dog tags. So you want to create again, you're using the curve tool, extrude the shape, mold it around the object, and try and, like I said, get it as close to that sort of muscle shape as possible. But this is external, so you're not going to take it using the mask tool on this one, so it's a little bit more difficult. You've got to be a little bit more careful with it, and it's never going to be exact, so it's going to hold over just a little bit. And then I'm just creating the dog tags as I would with any hard surface model, in getting a cube, shaping it, cutting it in. Then after that, it's just, as always, I feel like that's done, and then I've got to join this one together for the animation version. If you see, he's not no feet because he doesn't need it, and he's only got his legs on this one because you'll see a bit underneath it. But you add it all together, join them together, just as always, make small little tweaks along the way. Because when you join it together, you will lose a little bit of that cut in, so you want to keep going between it and adding more, especially when your character's muscly. And then the hands, always be careful when joining the hands together because it will, when you smooth it off, it will shrink it. So, and you want to keep it, obviously the fingers a bit thick. So it's just a case of, usually if you duplicate the hand, put it to a side, try it. If it works, delete the duplicated one. If it doesn't, delete the one you just did and try it again with the duplicated one, and then just keep duplicating it every time until you get it right. And then you just add in the hands together with that and then join them together. And then just making sure all those other parts are joined or parented together if they're not needed to need a remesh on them. But yeah, so once you've done that, you're going straight to the pose version, which on this one, he's just going to be leant back a little bit with his holding a machine gun, sort of like used the scene from the film. So you're just moving things slightly over at first, don't worry about specifics again, like muscle movements, just get it in the pose you need it to be. And then make sure you've got a bit of angle on it. And then I've used the base mesh of the trousers from the previous one to get the, because it's not moved too much, so I can actually keep that one. If it moved drastically, I'd have to completely redo the trousers, but I didn't need to on this one. And the same goes for the shoes because they just turn in slightly. And then this is where I'm saying where you do a bit more exact, see where the sort of stomach's going to move a little bit, the bicep will move a little bit when you move your arm. So we're just changing small little details just to get it correct. And then we're moving the head round, making sure that looks like he's moving up, and then we're just giving him a bit more of a Stallone face, a bit more emotion in there, but not too much. We're not say opening the mouth or completely changing everything. So just reshaping that as you go along. Then what I've done is I've added a reference for a machine gun, and then I've not made a completely in-depth one. Again, you'll see I'm just using cubes, resizing them, adding more together, and making a sort of a medium detailed one because this is with a view to printing off. And what I mean by that is if you're going to print something off with a 3D printer, you're going to lose a little bit of detail depending on the height. And these aren't meant to be printed particularly too tall. And even if they were printed tall, you're going to lose details, minor details. So you don't need to go really in depth with any sort of small things because as long as you've got that overall shape and a medium level of detail, it's going to look awesome. If you was doing it for an animation, though, you would want to do um, it as much as you can. So it's just, again, it's what you're using it for. Just be careful because if you're going to use it for animation, you want it detailed. If you're not going to use it for animation, you don't want to waste your time. So you just want to get an overall shape of that machine gun. It's still going to take a bit of time, but if you was doing it for, like I said, the animation, it's going to take a lot longer. But you're just using general cubes, hard surface modeling, which I've got a video on. If you do the lightsaber, you will be able to do this. Use the reference. I didn't use the reference exact here. I've kind of moved it around a little bit. And then we're just adding small things in until we've got our general shape of one. It's a bit flat at the bottom, but again, it's with a view to that print off. And I did notice later that I actually did that the wrong way around, but it's fine. The trigger you wouldn't actually see in a print anyway, depending on the size. It's not something you got to pay much attention to because his finger goes over it anyway. But if I was doing it again, I would obviously do it correct. But we all make mistakes. So to make life easy, I tend to just Boolean cutouts rather than go through the actual editing way of doing it. I'd suggest doing that if you want to save time, but again, it's all down to how much detail you want to put in it. If you just want to cut a simple cut out, use a Boolean, but if not, do it the proper way. So I know I said it was quite medium detailed, but I mean, you know, it's the level of detail you, as much as you want to get in. Then I've just added a little bit of color for the final video look, because that's what I mainly do the color for. Like I said, to see if it looks correct, but also it looks nice when you've got your final video for this YouTube, for example. So then I haven't done the hand yet. I've moved it to the side, and I'm just making sure that hand sort of curves around as if he's holding the machine gun. In the reference, he's only using it with one hand. Normally I would have two hands holding the machine gun like this, but because, like I said, it's Rambo, Rambo can do it with one, and it looks kind of cool in the end because I've got him holding the ammo as it comes out, which I'll show you in a minute, obviously. So you just want to make a general curve round, and then you do the same with the other hand where it's going to be holding something. So you just move that so it can hold something. So if you just hold your hand out and have a look, you can see what it looks like. And then what I've made is a small little sort of bullet, and then I've used made sure it's the right shape and size, and then I use so I duplicate it as much as I need it for as long as, you know, you might have to keep going back and forth with this like I have. And then you put a curve in, and you attach that to the curve, and you'll have it where it looks like it's coming out. Look, for example, I've had to add more there because there wasn't enough, but then I've got too many. Then, as always, when you've set that, turn it to a mesh, and then use the deform tool to get a very unique curve to it rather than keeping the same one. And then what I've done is I've seen that I've got too many, so I've gone into the edit mode, I've gripped it and deleted the ones I don't need, just so it goes up to a point. And then I just colored it in the gold for the bullets. And then after all that's done, same as what you do with the animation version, you join it all together so it looks smooth and correct. And then, like I said before, you're going to have to add your sort of muscle details back in when you've smoothed it. And do the same to the whole thing. And then again, if you want to add, like I'll do in a minute, I'll probably move the shoulder around a little bit. Just get it as good as you can get it. You might not need to if your detail's fine or it's for how you want it. But you just got to be careful. Make sure you, like I said, I've moved that to the side just to get a better look on that. And I've obviously moved a bit there, if you can see, just because it was going to go wrong otherwise. And then, like I said, just as always, connect it all together. And as you can see, I've got also some stuff in the background just in case I did something wrong, so I could go back and do it again. Always duplicate it if you're a bit unsure of how the outcome's going to be. Then all you're doing, if it stops a little bit, it's just because it's the processor joining it, and then I'm re-smoothing it after remeshing it. But I think that's basically about it. Once he's done there, I just played around with the lighting to get a little bit better lighting. Deleted the stuff in the background. Oh, and then added a base. There will be a base for all the items. Sometimes I forget to put it on, but it will be there in the save file. So you see I played with the lighting a little bit to get the best look. And there you go. That's the final piece. So if you liked that, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And there'll be another one soon that's already on the way. Like I said, if you want to buy it, come to Promethean Bryce, buy me a coffee, which will be linked at the end of this and on the video. Thanks for watching.